Finishing up the NFC side of things, we're grading every team, every pick in the NFL draft, NFC East time. How did the Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, and Washington Commanders do in the 2025 NFL draft? Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson. Did Howie do it again?
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson, as always, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Get those questions into this week's mailbag. Get them in early if you want on Twitter, on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, the thumbs up. We appreciate you for it. And, of course, if you're new to the program, you can subscribe everywhere, not only YouTube if you want to see our faces. And I don't blame you if you don't want to. Of course, all the audio podcast platforms, we're on there, and you can sub up, and we really appreciate you for it. We're going to get into the NFC East side of things here, going alphabetical as we grade the 2025 NFL draft, and we're starting with the Dallas Cowboys. And they shocked the world a little bit with the 12th pick in the first round. Matt, Tyler Booker, offensive lineman guard out of Alabama. Donovan Ezeraku, Boston College edge rusher in round 2. Came back with Savon Ravel, East Carolina cornerback who was injured throughout the process. They ended up getting him in round 3. He had some first-round buzz before the injury throughout the draft process. Jadon Blue, very fast running back that put the ball on the ground a little bit too much, running back out of Texas. Shamar James, Florida linebacker. Johnny Cornelius, offensive tackle out of Oregon in round 6. And then 3 7th-rounders. Jay Toya, big nose tackle out of UCLA. Phil Maffa, Clemson running back. And then Tommy Akimbasote, if I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Maryland defensive tackle, a little different shape and size and skill set than Jay Toya, the other defensive tackle in round 7 for the Dallas Cowboys. That is the 2025 Dallas Cowboys draft haul. And, I think those first 3 picks are going to be what really shapes this grade. And it's probably how you view Tyler Booker, which is going to shape this grade the most post-draft for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I think you can really look at this draft in 2 ways. The elephant in the room is where's the skill guys? Jaden Blue's the only guy you got really of consequence to help this offense score points. I think Tet McMillan would have been the pick if he would have fallen that far. Even no tight end or receiver drafted, period. And Blue's not an every down back. And does that mean we're rolling with Miles Sanders and what's his face?
Javonte Williams, yeah.
Javonte Williams from the Broncos. And I think that's a legit criticism. But I like the players they took. And I think it's early for first guard off the board. But in this draft, and we've talked about this a lot, there's such an O-line tax. And I think their O-line has been kind of the backbone of this team, going back to Nate Newton and Mark Stepnoski. And now they have everybody named Tyler and first-round picks everywhere. And I could see the vision. Let's be physical up front, and the skill guys will fall into place because Ezeraku and Ravel, getting them where you did, I think is wonderful. And even Toya in the 7th round just shows the physicality that they need in the trenches. So I really have mixed feelings about it.
I'm going to put some bias aside. I have a really good old friend who's a Cowboys fan. I actually golfed with him yesterday, and he's like, where's the NFC East breakdown? I want to hear what your grade is for the Dallas Cowboys. And I was like, you know what? There's an East Coast bias. We're finishing. East is last. So we're doing the
West
NFC
East. Yeah.
We're going to do AFC East in the very last. And I told him I was going to trash his Dallas Cowboys draft. And I was like, you took a non-athlete at a non-premium position, 12th overall. I'm going to crush you guys in this draft. And, but like, is guard now a premium position? Because it used to be just tackle, because teams are playing guards, teams are drafting them early. And I know the athletic profile wasn't great for Tyler Booker, but he's a good football player, and he's a monster, and he is a character guy. He is a leader. And his post-draft quote might have been the best in the entire league. He said, and I don't remember what podcast he was on something. I just saw the clip of it. and they were asked about how he plays, and he's like, you know what, football is this awesome sport, and everyone loves football, and you have to love football to be great. And he's like, so when I go and play a football game, I'm going up against a guy who loves football, and I make him hate football when he's playing. It's like, it was such a great quote. It's like, dude, that sums him up. And I think he's an absolutely safe pick. I don't know if he has the athletic profile to be like a truly great player. So in the end, you just get a really nice starter who's a high character player, a foundational player. Is that better than drafting a boomer bust player that busts? Yes, in the draft. But here's the thing, is they drafted boomer bust a little bit later. So if you mix a really safe guard in round 1 with a really dynamic pass rusher, even if he's not a great run defender in round 2, and Donovan Ezraku, and I definitely like Ezraku better with the 12th pick in round 2 than some of the mock drafts I saw him going in the teens, even in the first round. And then Ravel has star potential at cornerback. You get him all the way in round 3. Now, again, there's an injury concern there, but it's an ACL, and people come back from ACLs all the time. Maybe he's not quite ready for week 1 of his rookie year, but you're not drafting guys for week 1 of the rookie years. You're drafting them for year 2, 3, and beyond. And so you go safe early, you take some chances, you might have 3 just really good football players where you know what they are. And for that reason, I kind of like it. Jay Toya, a nose tackle in the 7th round.
7th round, right.
Deep class. I think he goes early in some other drafts. And then Cornelius is kind of the offensive tackle version of Savon Ravel, where you might have just snagged I mean, there's some injury problems there, but I think Cornelius goes higher in a lot of drafts too. And he's potentially a starting offensive tackle in the NFL, or a starting offensive lineman down the road. So to be honest with you, I can't crush the draft too much. I want to unathletic guard in round 1, but it's a solid haul. And I think in the end, it turns out to be a decent draft. But I'm also with you about, okay, it's CeeDee Lamb and what else on offense for you?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I guess they could sign Amari Cooper, trade for George Pickens. Supposedly they were that team, or, and find a running back, but J.K. Dobbins or Chubb, but still, it's not ideal.
There's one of the rumors out there that they're going to bring back Amari Cooper too.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I hated like every linebacker pick in this draft almost, but I kind of like Shamar James. Maybe he ends up starting. And to your point, if you get 3 starters out of a draft, and they could maybe get 4, it's a pretty successful draft. And maybe we should even talk about this like next week, but I'm very guilty of this. But the word premium position in the NFL is getting more and more blurry to me. I use that term a lot, but you said, it's a safe pick, but it's not a premium position. He's a bad athlete. It's a 12th pick overall. In most drafts, I would say that's a bad pick. But I don't know who would have made a better pick here. I mean, for all the good reasons for the guy, it is safe. It completes your O-line. And back to the premium pick thing, I don't want to be shopping on the open market for a starting guard. I mean, when these guys are $20 million, for an average starting guard that hits free agency, that's bad business. And the Cowboys don't go and get guys in free agency.
It is getting a little bit silly there with
it is right.
That
seems premium to me.
I think it's bad free agent money.
I do too. But you can't get linemen.
Right. You can find guards. It's so much more difficult to find a tackle. So much more difficult to find a difference-making defensive lineman.
Yeah.
And so I could see this turn. I'm gonna go B. It could turn out great.
Me too.
But in the end, I probably would have swung for something else over Booker in round 1. And again, like, what's the offense going to be? It's the same old thing, and like no.
Would they be better off with Golden?
Better off with Golden.
If you just swapped them 1 for 1, they didn't change anything else with their draft. Would they be better off with Golden?
The wide receiver hit rate is worse than the guard hit rate.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to bet who makes more money on their second contract, I'd bet Golden. So is that what we're basing it on? You know what I mean?
All right. I don't know. Guards make $20 million if he doesn't stink.
That's right. Well, but wide receivers make $40 million now.
Well, true. There's an argument both ways.
Yeah, there is an argument both ways for sure. And
Penei Sewell versus Jamar Chase.
There were guards to be had later. Could you find that dynamic wide receiver later? No. Right. A B. All right, we're in agreement. Solid.
Yeah.
B. I wanted to crush it more. So
I think we see it the same way, though.
Let's go. New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, and Washington Commanders grades for the 2025 NFL Draft next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Upwork. And scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, marketing. I worked as a freelancer with Upwork for a while, helping people get their podcasts up off the ground. I did some voiceover stuff. I did some producing for some podcasts as well back in the day. And so you could hire the next Brian Peacock. Who knows? Maybe the next Matt Williamson is out there to be hired at Upwork in whatever industry it is. Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable, cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Did you ever do any freelance work? Are you available for any freelance scouting work, maybe? There's an article that Matt Barrows locally does, Matt, for the 49ers, and former 49ers GM Scott McCloughan is not in the GM circuit anymore, but he's doing consulting for different teams. And he always breaks down, his favorite prospects, but he doesn't watch all the prospects. He only watches the prospects that the teams he works for asks him to evaluate, because people in the league still trust his evaluations, even though they don't want to allow him to be the full-time GM anymore for other reasons. You can go read about what's going on in his career. It's pretty fascinating, all the information, all the work that goes into these drafts. And I've been asked a lot about consensus draft boards, and people say, well, who cares what a team drafts versus the consensus draft boards? Because teams know more than you. Teams know more than everybody. And my response to it is yes and no, because there's so much league information now that is baked into a consensus draft board. I think as a draft media, so many people are plugged in, talk to so many people. I think especially if you consider quote unquote expert consensus draft boards, I think are as good as we've ever seen. And I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but I think fans should not put teams evaluations up on this pedestal of like, oh, these teams are amazing at it, and you're just a dummy that doesn't know anything. We know a lot these days. And if you look at consensus draft boards versus teams, some teams do it a little bit better. Sometimes that goes up and down, and some teams do it a lot worse. And I love hearing Eric DeCosta talk about this. And he's like, we are not that smart. And I love hearing GMs
self-recognition.
Yeah. And Howie Roseman is kind of like that, where they take chances, but they also want a lot of picks, and you make your own luck in the draft in a lot of ways by utilizing the draft boards and utilizing what's available to you. We're going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles really quick here. It's out of alphabetical order, but just because we're on the topic here, I want to talk about Howie Roseman and the Eagles and what they did in this draft and how they've built that thing. And we've seen this multiple times from Howie, where he just trades up one spot. He did it for Jalen Carter. Was the team that the Bears, were they going to draft Jalen Carter? And if you know that they're going to move up to get your guy, are you going to let him do that? So why do you even trade up? It's this little thing that Howie does, and I think he's just winking at the rest of the league and kind of flexing on the league. And he's like, yeah, look, I'm just doing this to have fun. I'm having fun over here, and I'm lapping the field guys. So I'm just going to trade up one spot because I can, and I still have 10 draft picks. And they went up with the Chiefs to go up to 31 and draft linebacker Jihad Campbell out of Alabama in round 1.
Yeah, and so we can break down their whole draft, and I'm sure we will. But a couple things you said there, I definitely agree with, that the quote media and the consensus board and all the knowledge is way better than it ever was. No question about it. Now, I thought we were going to talk Giants, and I was going to bring up Marcus Mabau, who in the 5th round, because that was like one of my favorite picks in the draft.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, well, maybe the league just knows more than us because of character or medical. And character or medical, we're not even close to the league. Right. But in terms of hit rate, yeah, we are. Well,
that's what's crazy. So the league has a leg up, and this obvious advantage with more knowledge. Is it analysis paralysis? Because they don't do better with the extra knowledge.
There's also a development standard situation too. Like, yes. I hate when a guy gets drafted into an old school example was 4-3 technique type guy, and he gets drafted. I remember when the Chiefs took the Dorsey kid from LSU. He was like the 4th pick in the draft. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, yes. He was like classic 4-3 under tackle, like undersized pass rusher. Yeah.
And then the next year they went to a Steeler 3-4 defense. Like that poor kid. I mean, if he goes to a different scheme, quarterback's the best situation. I mean, this is a conversation for down the road. I mean,
yeah.
But so much of it is what happens after you get drafted too. But real quick on Campbell. So just 2 years ago, I mean, and all the way back, nobody ignored the linebacker position like the Eagles. I mean, never drafting high, no money investments. And then Bond works out and they keep him. And then they trade up a spot and take Campbell, who was a consensus first-round pick. But I wonder if their pass rush background of Bond and Campbell is why they like those guys. You know what I mean?
Campbell might be a reverse Bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Campbell and they value the pass rush. That tells me that they're going to utilize Jihad Campbell's pass rush skills. And I wouldn't be shocked if he rushes the passer as much as he plays off-ball linebacker. And I think that's part of the value and why they liked Jihad Campbell. And then just him being the best linebacker in this class and falling all the way to 31. There's some injury stuff with him. And that's probably the reason why. And again, I think it's just Howie being like, I'm going to trade up one spot to make sure because it's worth whatever little pick we have to throw here. We got extra picks. Let's go get our guy, even though it's only one spot. It's just Howie being Howie, I think.
Yeah. But I like this draft. I mean, I think there's a little bit of give the Eagles more credit than they deserve, that they're so much smarter than the rest of the league, which is what happens to Super Bowl champs. But like Makuba and Robinson, the 2 next picks, I think are going to be high quality players. I loved Robinson. I think Makuba is a really good player. And I'll bet everything I own that either Drew Kendall in the 5th, Cameron Williams in the 6th, or especially Miles Hinton in the 6th turns into a good offensive lineman. And those are minimal investments.
You go to Stoutland U, right?
Right.
Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach.
All of ability.
He does some good work. And so you draft some guys late and they don't have to play. They're just depth pieces now. You develop and one of them hits, one of them doesn't. You're in a great place there. And obviously there was a lot of late round picks. They used a pick to go up and get Jihad Campbell. So Makuba, that's still a little high at the end of round 2.
I thought it was a little high too.
Yeah. Final pick in round 2, but he's kind of a size outlier. So that's why I thought he might have been there a little bit later in the draft, round 3 and round 4. But the tape is really good, and he's a really fun player, and can do a lot of different things for that defense, which they loved in Philadelphia.
They don't have Gardner Johnson anymore, so maybe another versatile piece there.
Exactly.
Win now move.
Ty Robinson, the athletic profile, you get him in the 4th round. Love that pick. Mac McWilliams, not to be confused with Matt Williamson. It's a hard one for me to say. Mac McWilliams because I say Matt Williamson so many times. Corner out of UCF, that's a great pick in the round 5 area. I think the teams that waited till about round 5, like outside of Campbell and Schlesinger, the teams that waited until round 5, I think that was the sweet spot again to jump back in at linebacker and get one of these guys that is undersized, 220 pounds. There were so many of them that can develop in your system. Maybe, get in the weight room a little bit more for a year, be a special teams guy. Smile Mondin out of Georgia.
You had to draft a Georgia guy too,
Well, you have to get a guy from Georgia for sure. And so they double up on off-ball linebacker, depending on how much Campbell actually plays off-ball linebacker for them. And as you mentioned, Drew Kendall, Kyle McCord, Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, tons of value, I think, in those prospects in the round 6 area. Antoine Powell Ryland is sort of a dart throw and a lottery ticket as a athletic edge rusher as well in round 6. So a lot of picks. I like the draft, and I think is more about contributors than stars, but it could go really well as well for this if Jihad Campbell and Makuba turn out to be starters. And they might hit on a couple of other these later round guys, McWilliams and Mondin, Kendall, McCord back up. I mean, gotta like it. I love what they're doing here.
Yeah, I kind of think Campbell and Makuba are win now pieces, and one of those linemen will turn into a long-term project. And I like what they did. They made a lot of picks too, which is helpful. 3 5th-rounders.
Another solid B.
It's not I thought it'd be as well.
Good draft. And we don't throw around A's, by the way, here. If you guys
no.
Do we not have any? I don't think we have any A's yet.
trying to think, and I don't think so.
This is more of a B draft. I think it's more about the
too.
talent that's in this draft. It was a depth draft and not a stars draft.
Agreed.
We'll see if there's an A in the East between the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders next. It's an A pick, in my opinion, for the New York Giants to not draft a quarterback at number 3 and take Abdul Carter. So I love that perspective. But then they gave away a lot of value for going to get in a guy that I thought was, more of a third round guy in Jackson Dart. They traded up to get a quarterback because it was such a need. Past decisions forced them into this position. And I think most teams that didn't have a quarterback would be like, well, that was a bad move and that was an overpay for Jackson Dart. But they found their quarterback, and we'll see what that looks like for them. They went up to pick 25 I like that they didn't have to dip into future first. It was a couple of thirds in there. So I do like that aspect of it.
I don't think it's an overpay. I don't love Dart, but I don't think it's an overpay.
The trade up is not an overpay. The player to go get that specific player is the overpay, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Trade up makes sense. You're going to get a quarterback. Darius Alexander, defensive tackle out of Toledo in round 3. Cam Scatterbo, running back out of Arizona State in round 4. You got Marcus Bowe that you mentioned earlier, guard in round 5. There has to be something else there because talent-wise, he should have gone a lot earlier, especially with the offensive line tax. Thomas Fedone, the second Nebraska tight end in round 7. Then Corey Black at Oklahoma State corner in round 7. This is a draft that, outside of Abdul Carter and Marcus Bowe, I did not like the other prospects that they drafted. Mostly, I'm talking Dart, Alexander, and Scatterbo. I thought Alexander and Scatterbo were two, and Dart. I think they were 3 of the most overrated prospects in this entire draft for me, Matt. I think Scatterbo is a backup. He's a rotational, short yardage guy. He's got these jump cuts and then just no juice. Like, he jump cuts all over the place and then doesn't go anywhere. Every yard is contested. I'm not on the Scatterbo hype train. I don't think he's going to be a starting running back in the NFL. I think he's rotational third down back, and that's fine. He's a 4th round pick, right? So I think the league told us he wasn't that 2nd round guy that some people wanted. And Darius Alexander, when you're 24, 25 years old, 5th year senior at Toledo, and you're staying blocked against the Bowling Green guard one-on-one, and maybe Bowling Green has a future all-pro guard that I don't know about, but Darius Alexander.
But I doubt Bowling Green, Akron, Kent, and Central Michigan all do, right?
And he just stayed blocked too much. And I get there's some traits there. And then again, I don't think Dart is that dude. So while I like Carter, I think he could be a superstar for you. Does Bowe become a starting offensive guard? Then you start feeling better, even if the other guys don't turn out. I just don't think this is going to be a job saver for the brain trust with New York.
I like Alexander more than you, but I couldn't agree more on Dart and Scatterbo. Like, the dynasty community is like, man, Tyrone Tracy took such a hit with this pick. I mean, his stock's in the toilet. I'm like, I'd still much rather have Tracy. He's a way better player than Scatterbo. Don't know how to comment on Bowe. I mean, again, it was like my favorite pick in the draft, so there's probably something wrong with him that I don't know, but I'm not trying to spread that rumor. They were smart and made the Carter pick, but I'm not sure that it took a brain surgeon to do that over Shedeur Sanders or Dart. You know what I mean? That went way later,
Now, clearly, the way the league looked at all these guys, and maybe if the Giants don't draft Dart, maybe he does fall to the 3rd round. That's kind of my. Did everyone really love all these quarterbacks? Clearly not.
Clearly not. And I feel like ownership. I said this before the draft. I think ownership in Cleveland and New York influenced their quarterback picks a lot. And I'm not sure that's good business. And they do have Winston and Wilson, and frankly, I don't think their roster is terrible. So they could win games, but Dart's going to have pressure to get on them or get in there. And then I think you end up drafting this guy for the next regime who probably doesn't like him either. What's the process here?
Do you have any insight on why Bowe fell to the 5th round?
No, I wish I did, because I know he's a little undersized, could use a year in the weight room, but he's an athlete. His tape is good. He has some tackle back. I think he fits an outside zone scheme. And there was a spot when the Steelers were on the clock. I said I would take him right now. I don't know what the issue is.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a C draft to me. Definitely below the other 2 we talked about.
Yeah. Spending what it was 3-4 picks on Dart.
Yeah.
Carter, obviously, and I do think he has a chance to be a star. But again, there's some he's not a huge run defending edge.
He's not Nick Bosa or Myles Garrett coming out.
Right,
So
right.
Maybe he's one of the best players in this draft, but he's
And
not one of the best DNs we've seen.
And if you think he's going to bump his head on the ceiling of what he could be, you're thinking Von Miller style player, which is, okay, he's not
great,
stout, edge setter. He's fine in that regard, but you're drafting him for his juice off the edges, pass rusher. If he hits that ceiling, then you don't care about the rest of it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
C. I guess I'll go C+ because some star potential there. And it still could hit, and I could be completely wrong about some of those players that they ended up drafted. But it's he better hit. Carter better hit for that class.
Yeah, and I bet he will. I just don't know that he'll be a Hall of Famer.
Washington Commanders finishing up the NFC East. They went Josh Connerly Jr. at pick 29 in round 1, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Trey Amos, corner out of Ole Miss, fell all the way to the end of round 2, which was a little bit surprising to me. Jalen Lane, speedy wide receiver from Virginia Tech in round 4. Obviously, they had added Deebo Samuel to that wide receiver group as well, and so they were down a few picks, only 5 selections in this draft. Kane Medrano, UCLA linebacker in round 6. Speedy, probably special teamer earlier in his career, and maybe that's all he is, but he ran 4.4s. But another one of these, 220-pound day 3 linebackers in this class. And then maybe my favorite selection of their draft.
I love this one. Yeah. Speaking about the dynasty community, this is my 4th round pick every time. Yeah.
This is a juiced up running back, and he wasn't on the radar because he didn't play last year because of some NCAA rules. And he played in the first game of the season and had 100 and something yards, and he transferred, and he was going to enter the draft last year and he didn't because he was like a 6th-year senior. So I don't know what the whole behind the scene was. And there was questions about eligibility. So he really didn't play last year for Arizona, but Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 7th round running back, has all kinds of ability and explosiveness as a runner. So I love that pick.
He lit up his pro day too. So I think he's like ready to rock.
4.4. He was, I think, let me see if I can find the height, weight, speed here. 5'11", 204, and he ran 4.4s and, 1,200 yard rusher at New Mexico the year before. I mean, you can get that. That's why you don't draft running backs early, because you can get Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in round 7. So you just draft the day 3 running back every year, teams. Please, for the love of God, stop drafting first round running backs. But I love
perfect spot for him too. Like no one will think about him. Then he'll be like lead the preseason in rushing, and then next year he'll be the starter.
Yeah, exactly. Or he'll go away and it didn't matter because he's a 7th.
It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, right, exactly.
Josh Connerly, though, was a premium position, and you take those in round 1, and he was one of the last true, like, okay, this guy's got traits to be a starting left tackle in the NFL. Trey Amos, starting corner traits as well. So for that reason, Jalen Lane, I could give or take, but we're talking about just a flyer on a speedy round 4 wide receiver. I really like this draft. For only 5 picks, I think this is a solid B+ draft for me. You have to factor in that they were able to get Deebo Samuel from this draft class, and they were able to get Tunsil. There we go.
Yep.
I mean, when you factor that in, this might be an A class, right? They got big time starting talent from this draft class, and then potentially 2-3 more starters.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I feel like those first 2 picks were very analytically based. Like there's a good tackle prospect, we take him even though we just traded for Tunsil. Like I'm not sure we need him, but he needs a year anyway, and somewhere tackles are expensive. Amos should never have lasted that long unless there's something else we don't know about. I don't know if Lattimore is good or not anymore, but I do know I went Sanistro at the nickel, and Amos allows that to happen even more. Perfect. I am a Jalen Lane fan, but I mean, again, 4th round pick. He's a lot different than McCaffrey, who they drafted last year. So, they get a little younger there, because I was a little worried about Deebo and McLaurin being the same age and not young. And I like what they did overall. I mean, I think you do have to factor in when the Raiders trade for Geno Smith or the Steelers trade for DK Metcalf, let alone Deebo and Tunsil, because they'd have a lot more draft capital. I'm going to give it a B+, and it's definitely my favorite haul, including the veterans in the division.
And by the way, for those listeners that aren't familiar with Jalen Lane, he wasn't just good; he was unbelievably good in his pre-draft workouts. He was top 3.
Oh, he's explosive. Yeah,
at 10-yard split was 1.50, which is scorching. 4.3 40-yard dash, 11-foot broad jump, which is top 3. 40-inch vertical. 20-yard shuttle was 4.12, which is awesome. And then his 3-cone 6.75 was awesome. All top 3 at the combine. And
he's not tiny. I mean, he's almost 200 pounds, 5'11". He's got, got some muscle on him.
5'10 and a half, 191. He's not like who's it? Tez Johnson's 155 pounds, right? Coming out of one of those. So yeah, I love this. And when you factor in, we didn't really set, like, we're just kind of feeling our way through this. We didn't set like parameters of how we have to grade this. When you factor in two other starters, so they got 2 offensive tackles, starting caliber offensive tackles from this one draft class, and starting
different ages and different money investments and all that. I don't know when Connerly will play, but fine. You might have to go to the right.
It's in the B territory when you factor in getting Debo and Tunsil with this draft class. Like it's A- territory, I think, for me. It might be one of the few A's I would give out. So
yeah. I'd say B+, but I can be convinced of an A-. It's definitely my first one in the East. The Giants are my 4th. I guess I'll go Eagles over Cowboys, but they're close.
They're close. Yeah. But a lot of good players added to the NFC East. Our combined grades might have been our best combined division grades in the entire NFC with these 4.
Good point.
Next, we're getting into the AFC. We'll start with the where are we going? North first. North, South, West, East is the order this week as we break down all of the teams in the AFC post-draft 2025 draft grades, and plus your, who knows, any other breaking news that happens in the NFL. Of course, as we do, we'll have you covered here on Peacock and Williamson, and a weekly mailbag as well. So get those questions in at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.